reporter, lead content guy, Monday morning quarterback, former Patriot beat writer for the Globe and Cowboy beat writer for the Dallas Morning News. Let's go to him via the Coward Global Satellite Network, our friend Albert Breer. I'm a believer that in this league, outside a quarterback, you have to make very difficult decisions. And you have to occasionally, Albert, move players that are very, very talented. Make sure he can hear us now. Can you hear us, Albert? No, he can't hear us right now. So make sure audio, get it cleaned up that when Albert can hear us. For those of you who missed my premise, is the NFL is not the NBA. There are some absolutely can't lose players in the NBA, and you just can't. You got 5 starters. You got about 7 guys in the league. They just make you better. And by the way, even those guys like Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard, teams can win without him. I mean, Kevin Durant, they were 35-8 without him, but it's hard to win titles. So now Albert's back. All right, Albert, let's talk about Zeke. My proposal is his yards per game are going down. His touchdowns per year are going down. They've got a lot of mouths to feed, and I don't trust his judgment off the field during the off seasons. You could get a haul for him, Albert. You could get a lot of players and picks for him. Would you consider him on the trade block privately? Would you make calls if you were the Cowboys?
I wouldn't. And look, I think the off-field concerns are very, very valid. I'd be nervous about paying him. And you know what they say, money only makes you more of what you already are. And so you'd have to feel confident that he's grown up. And I think the Cowboys do feel confident he's growing up, but you'd still be a little nervous based on his past. That said, like, this offense is different. It's built around the offensive line. It's built around the running game. And so much of Dak Prescott's success over the course of the last 3 years has been based on whether or not Zeke Elliott is in the lineup and in top form. And there's nothing more valuable than the development of your young quarterback. And I would argue that Zeke Elliott's success has had as much to do with how well Dak Prescott has played as Todd Gurley's success in LA early on had with Jared Goff turning the corner. And so I think as much as anything else, this is about the structure of your offense where you've invested in that offensive line and the development of your young quarterback, which to me is priceless. And so I think here the Cowboys sort of have to bite the bullet just because of who they are and because who their quarterback is after 3 years. I think it makes sense for them to keep him.
You know, it's a fun time before the camps open. And I was watching lists come out yesterday about quarterbacks. The Madden ratings for quarterbacks came out, and Aaron Rodgers was like 6th or 7th. But I do feel like the narrative on Aaron Rodgers has changed a little. The last time he was in a Super Bowl, Peyton Manning was a Colt, Carson Palmer was a Bengal, and Brett Favre was in the league. And that he is 35. He is increasingly brittle. Like Favre, he's a little stubborn. He's got a way he plays. He's not great with every teammate. I don't think it's a slap for Madden to come out and say, you know, we would take this morning Mahomes, Andrew Luck, or Russell Wilson. I don't. I think Aaron's talented, but I think there's some baggage that comes with him, which you can't deny some injuries. He's become increasingly brittle. What do you make of Aaron Rodgers today? When you talk to sources about him, McCarthy gets jettisoned. Where are we at with Aaron Rodgers?
The biggest question you're going to ask is, does this guy want to be coached? Because for as stubborn as Peyton Manning can be, as tough as Tom Brady can be, those guys would tell their coaches, and you can ask Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels, Adam Gase, Mike McCoy, whoever you want, ask any of those guys. What those guys will tell you is Tom Brady and Peyton Manning wanted to be coached. And to me, that's the central question with Aaron Rodgers here now. Obviously, there was some clashing with the old coaching staff. And what's so interesting here about the marriage between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, look at what guys like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay have done. That offense is based on the quarterback playing fast. It takes responsibility off the quarterback's hands, right? It gives the protection calls to the center. It gives the quarterback less options at the line of scrimmage. Everything is based on the quarterback just going out there and playing. And we know what a big issue control has been for Aaron Rodgers. So how are they going to marry the two? That's something that I've talked to Matt about. It's something that I've talked to people in that organization about. It's something that I think is going to be a big challenge for them over the course of this first year is how do you marry a system that's based on getting quarterbacks playing fast? And that's why it's been so good for young quarterbacks like Jared Goff. How do you marry that system, that philosophy, with a guy who's always had a ton of control? And so to me, the central question remains, Colin, does Aaron Rodgers want to be coached? And then when you take it to the next level, it's on the coaching staff to figure out a way how to make a system that, again, has been traditionally very easy for quarterbacks to play in, how do you fit it for a quarterback who's so far evolved? I think that's one of the most fascinating stories going into 2019. If Aaron Rodgers wants to be coached, there's no question how great he can be. But that's the central question going into the season.
So we cover Zeke and we cover Aaron Rodgers. I want to talk Russell Wilson for a second. He put Seattle, and I don't blame him, but he put him in kind of a pinch. Rumors started surfacing. He'll go to New York, and Seattle had to pay him. And once Seattle had to pay him, do we have Albert's audio? All right. Can Albert hear me? All right. Let's just make sure Albert can hear. Audio guys, make sure he can hear. Can you hear?
You're just very low. I can hear you.
Okay.
Super.
All right.
Now I got you.
All right. When he has me, I'll talk.
I got you again.
All right, here we go. I want to talk about Russell Wilson. The Seahawks had to pay him a fortune this offseason. And you can tell they didn't think it was going to happen this quickly because they then had to turn 4 draft picks into 11. They started, John Snyder started working quickly. We got to get inexpensive. It was a very good job by the front office of Seattle. Here's my question. Do you believe there's a tad bit of resentment in this organization that they kind of got backed into a wall with Russell Wilson a year early, had to ad-lib a lot during the draft to get younger and cheaper? Do you think this is kumbaya in Seattle or not?
I think everything's fine in Seattle. I think part of this, of course, is, Russell Wilson looking back at his own history and the way he's negotiated these contracts. And there was a lot of resentment towards Russell Wilson from the previous group of players and guys that are now gone, like Cam Chancellor and
yeah, we lost him. You know what? Some days audio is Albert is always, it seems like, dealing with the audio demons. But he thinks it's okay. We're fine. I want to shift to this. And I think this is something I was going to talk about next hour, but I'll bring it up. I got about 4 minutes. So in the NBA, I had this discussion with a friend of mine named Tim. I wrote a couple books, and Tim Kuhn was the guy I wrote the books with. And we were laughing about this the other day, about these NBA owners. They always complain about, stars are leaving. But the franchise worth never goes down, right? So the players may leave, but you bought the thing for $500 million. It's now worth $2 billion. Billionaires getting more billions. I don't lose a lot of pity. But here's the funny thing about this. We've seen Kawhi leave, and we've seen players leave certain cities, and it's often smaller, less glamorous cities. And the player always gets crushed for it, right? Has anybody thought about this? If you didn't have a professional sports team, regardless of what league we're talking about, hockey, NFL, baseball, NBA, if you didn't have it by like 1985, you probably were kind of wedging you in. Did we really need the NBA in Memphis and OKC? Really? Did we really need the NFL in Jacksonville? Really? I mean, mostly we established all the cities in baseball, basketball, football. Now, don't count soccer because that's a league in its infancy. But in hockey, you give me Philadelphia, you give me Pittsburgh, you give me Detroit, you give me St. Louis, you give me the cold weather northern cities. Nobody really needed Phoenix. There was nobody. Hockey in the desert was not a necessity. Nothing against Phoenix. It's worked in Las Vegas for a year. Let's wait and see if Vegas is terrible for a decade. How many people in the desert go inside and watch players skate around ice? But it's a classic example. I'm reading this story today about by The Athletic, theathletic.com. I'm a subscriber, about how much power Oklahoma City gave Westbrook. He had total power over the organization. We're not practicing today. Nobody can come in before the games and talk to us. We're not going to stay in that city an extra day. Let's fly to another city and practice. And it was the same thing LeBron got in Cleveland. And it's not a coincidence. It's not irony that Oklahoma City and Cleveland, both cities that players don't necessarily want to go to, have to acquiesce to a superstar's needs. Owners keep adding teams because they get expansion fees. It costs you like $800 million. I'm throwing a number out, but I think it's like $800 million to get into hockey. Well, the owners all split that money. But there's no city that really needs the NHL right now. I'll give you an example. Major League Baseball needs fewer teams. Because there's no salary cap, Oakland can't compete. Cincinnati can't compete. Tampa Bay can't compete. We need less teams. Tampa has acknowledged, can we do half the year here and half the year in Canada? And yet baseball is going to expand. I used to live in Portland. That's one of the cities. Portland's not a Major League Baseball city. Period. Seattle is bigger and wealthier with 6 times more Fortune 500 companies. and they struggled to compete financially. Minnesota, which is a corporate hub, struggles to compete financially. Oakland can't. Tampa can't. Cincinnati can't. And you want to add Portland. I like Portland. 81 home games? You got to be kidding me. But this is the world we live in. So these owners, they want the expansion free. It's just free money. I mean, they get like a $30 million check. What rich guy doesn't want a $30 million check? So like, yeah. And then you have a Memphis in the NBA. You get a Jacksonville in the NFL. And don't be shocked if in the NBA, a star-driven league, a lot of these players don't want to play in these cities. I mean, Seattle and Oklahoma City. One's a corporate hub. One is not. Don't be shocked guys don't want to be there. You know, and it just cracks me up. I read these stories all the time. If you go to the last 10 new franchises in America, Las Vegas, hockey in the desert. It doesn't work in Phoenix. It's had years where it's worked. OKC in the NBA, Memphis NBA, Jacksonville, New Orleans in the NBA. Now, New Orleans got Zion, but if New Orleans didn't get Zion and got the number 9 pick, it wouldn't feel nearly as good today. Is that the owners, the players get ripped for it because they don't want to play in certain organizations, especially in the NBA. Well, then stop expanding leagues. Stop it. We got enough teams. I could make an argument, and I've made this argument for years. You can go to every league, hockey, MLB, NHL,